contractor just stole $1.6 million.
A federal judge sentenced Matt Mincarelli in February to 8 years in prison after he stole a total of $1.6 million from more than a dozen people.
And honestly, it's a lot easier to fall for than you might think. Now, I've been investing in properties and managing rehabs for 14 years, and I've been screwed in about every way that you can imagine. And in this video, I'm going to break down the 5 most common contractor scams, how to spot them, and the simple frameworks you can use to prevent them, even if you don't know a thing about construction. Now, this robbery right here is what I call the material heist. This is when a contractor buys material for your job, but then takes that material and maybe even the labor and uses it on another house, like he did on his $1.6 million home. Now, there's a nasty variation of this, which I call the swap out. And I actually was caught right in the middle of this. Caught a contractor red-handed who was telling me that an HVAC didn't work, and we found his warehouse, or shed, I guess, full of barely used HVAC systems. This one happens to out-of-state investors all the time. So he's telling me HVAC systems broke. I'm probably not going to go check it because he's a contractor I trust. He takes out that HVAC system that he knows is working, charges you for a new one, and then takes yours and sells it to another investor. Terrible. Then there's the Photoshop. So I get a call from an out-of-state investor and they say, hey, my contractor just won't finish the last few things on this property, and I was wondering if you can help me get it to the finish line. My first question is, okay, how much have you paid him? Their answer, most of it. And then I go to the job site and I figure out that, well, not only is it not almost done, it's barely even started. So I call him and I'm like, hey, what do you think's done here? And she's like, well, I've seen the pictures of the flooring when he got done with that and the cabinets and such. And so I was figuring it just needed some of the finishing touches and we were good to go. Turns out the dude was photoshopping the pictures or strategically taking the photos. I'm not sure. Maybe there was one room with floors done. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm telling you, this crap happens to people. And even worse yet is one I call the cash and dash, which is kind of one everybody knows, which is you basically pay a contractor up front and then you just never see him again. Now, these are criminal contractor tricks, like really malicious, strategic people do this. This is like first degree scamming. All right, but what gets most people is not that kind of malicious behavior. It's these lighter weight, everyday kind of scams. And I'm actually in this video going to go through all 5 of them in a little bit more depth. I just wanted to introduce you to the fun stuff, the criminal contractor scams. Everyday contractor scam number 1. This is what I call the Abe Lincoln. And this one starts with like the most dangerous phrase in real estate, which is, don't worry, man, we'll just shake on it. And you know, you're kind of bound by human nature to want to build relationships with people, which you should be doing. However, a contractor who knows more than you and is seeing you as blood in the water, shark, you know, you're a new investor, maybe you're out of state, and they're thinking, well, I can really get as much as I can get out of this person. So they might talk to you in really ambiguous terms on a scope of work, knowing that when it comes down to things, they'll be able to squeeze extra out of you. This actually happened to me in one scenario where I was like in a cost plus arrangement with a contractor, and you know, we were kind of loosey-goosey about the scope of work, and we maybe even had a conversation. Of course, when he gaslit me about it, he said we had a conversation about, well, if you know, we got to keep the project moving. So if you find something, just go ahead. But that's not what I remember saying. I remember saying, if you find something, you know, we'll probably have to move forward. But I would love to know what it's going to cost and what we're going to have to do, so I have options. But anyway, that's not the way he fed it back to me. Ended up tearing out a whole bathroom because he found some rot in the walls or whatever. Tore out the whole bathroom, redid it, thousands of dollars. Obviously, when I get the bill for it, what am I going to do? Not pay it? You know, he did the work, so I had to pay him for the work. But if you watch any of my stuff, you know that there would have been different ways to handle this one scenario. But that's what the contractor scam number 1 is all about. They know that you don't know what they know, And they know that if things are ambiguous in the scope of work, that they'll be able to gaslight you into and convince you that you actually agreed to those things in advance. So what's the resolution to something like this is, well, pretty simple. You never have gray area in your scope of work. This would be like if you went to the bank and you gave them $2,000 cash to put into your bank account, and the bank teller just says, okay, got it. And you're like, yeah, but like my receipt, could I have my receipt? Or like proof that you took that cash and put it in the bank. Oh no, we don't do that here, but let's just shake on it, right? You'd never do that. And you shouldn't do that with contractors either. So you get scopes of work in 3 ways. All right, this is like, despite popular opinion, I don't do contracts with contractors. I know, blows everybody's mind every time. But here's why. Like, you're never going to hunt these guys down and get them in court and like get the couple grand they owe you or whatever out of it. And by the time you did, it would cost you so much that it wouldn't be worth the money or the time. Not only that, but you want to take as much friction out of the game as possible. So like, I don't want to get formal bids from these guys. I don't want to make them read through contracts and get nervous about all that kind of stuff. I want to work off a handshake and a little bit more as much as possible to remove friction. So what we do is we have a verbal, we walk around the job site, we talk about what needs to happen on the job, and then we write it down together. We confirm, usually I write things in advance, and then we confirm it when we're on the job site. And then finally, we walk the job site together with a video. And I say, hey, so this is what you're thinking about doing here. Okay, now make sure if you find something in the wall, you stop and you tell me first so we can do this again for that specific scope of work. Got it? Cool. All right, now it's all on video, it's all written, and we've talked about it, because communication is really hard, by the way. And so it's good to do that stuff just for the communication factor. But also now when you get a bid from that person, you send them the written and the video and say, hey, I want you to give me your bid based upon this. All right. That way, that if something comes up in the future, you can look back to the text and the video and you can say, hey, we did talk about this, man. Sorry. And also those things don't usually come up because a lot of times when they come up, it's not out of malicious intent. I know it's fun to talk about like contractor scams and stuff, but the reality is it's because they made a mistake and they're trying to cover their ass for it. It's not because they strategically Abe Lincolned you. It's because they thought they were supposed to do that or didn't remember correctly. Now they have the written and the video and then go watch it. So a lot of times these things don't happen anyway. All right. Now, scam number 2 is the loss leader. Now, this one might not be a scam depending on how you want to look at it. All right. This is, I guess, commonplace in this marketplace and other marketplaces, which is, imagine going to a grocery store. You get the little newspaper thing that has all the great deals that are at the grocery store right now. You get 2 porterhouse steaks for the price of 1. That's going to get me to go to the store. All right. And that's right there on the end cap. 2 porterhouses for the price of 1. Sweet deal. But you go right around the corner, you get those melons that are 3 times the price, or better yet, bottles of water that are like 100x what they pay to fill them with tap water. And that's where they make all their profit, off the melons, not off the steak. But the steak gets you in the door. This is what happens with a lot of contractors, especially ones working in like higher end residential, is they give you the initial bid that is like at cost for them. In fact, maybe they even lose a little bit on the initial bid because they know once they get you in there, they are going to find something in the wall, the whole bathroom example. Or if it's like a homeowner, that they're going to be, while you're here, can you look at the blah, blah, blah. But on these extra items, this is where the real markup comes into play. All right, initial bid, they might make 0 to 5% off of it. But these change orders, they're making 50, 60, 70% off of. And that is the strategy of a lot of people. Get in the door and they know that they're going to get extra. The loss leader. All right, so how do you prevent yourself from this? Well, you need to have a process for how you handle change orders. And the process is pretty simple. All right, if somebody brings me a change order, it almost always has what I call the fear tax on it. It has a special markup. Every job, right? There's a project, and inside of a project are multiple jobs like flooring and paint and fixing termite stuff, whatever. Those are jobs. Project is 123 Main Street. So every job basically comes down to this. There is material cost plus labor cost plus a markup, which your contractor should get a markup. They should get paid, because if they're not making money, they're not going to continue to work with you. And the real goods come from the relationship capital that you build over time. Not going to get into that right now. But the fear tax is a little bit of an extra markup across all of that kind of stuff, which usually comes with things like we found termites in the wall. There's unknowing about it for the consumer, like, ooh, I don't know, that sounds bad, that sounds scary. Therefore, the contractor knows that they can put a little extra markup on it. That extra markup, that's what we call the fear tax. How do you prevent the fear tax? That's one question we need to answer here. And then how do you make sure you handle a change order appropriately? You combat the fear tax by breaking the job down into smaller tasks. All right, so a termite rotted wall or a termite eaten wall, that is a job name that has a hefty fear tax to it. But if I break that down into tasks, which is demo, cleanup, reframing, drywall, paint, those are tasks. And those tasks have a regular price, which includes material, labor, and a reasonable markup, but there's no fear tax over the top of it. So I've broken that down into 5 separate tasks instead of it being termite problem, right? That's the first thing I do. So now going to the change order itself, I would ask the contractor, okay, so like, what do we have to do here? Okay, so you got the termites, so you have to do the demo. All right, what do you do after that? Almost like I'm trying to learn how to do it. And then, okay, well, so I'm trying to understand, like, how long will it take to do the demo? That's probably like a half a day, right? Not a very high skill guy at half a day. Okay. And then the framing, that probably takes somebody that's a little more skilled. So maybe a higher hourly rate, but material, I mean, we're only talking about, $50 to $100, right? It's just a wall. Okay. And then we got the drywall, and then you're not going to do the termite stuff, right? We're going to hire a termite company to come out. What do they charge? Okay. So I'm not seeing how we came to this $10,000 price tag. Am I missing something here? And usually in this scenario, they'll say, ooh, you know what? I didn't think about it like that. Yeah, you're probably right. I was thinking that it'll usually be a story like, I was thinking that we were going to have to do the blah, 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 blah too. But when you say you only want that done, then yeah, sure, I can do that for like $3,000. No problem. All right. But some will stand strong and say, sorry, my price has to be $10,000. And, or they'll come back with a $9,000 bid. And I don't try to haggle at that point, right? I try to reframe it to where it's a different job than they thought, and then they can give me a different bid. But if it's the same job that they thought and we're just haggling, you want to exit out of that, because you don't want to get people in the habit of every price they give you is going to be haggled. In that scenario, what I say to preserve our relationship capital is I say something along the lines of, you know what, I get this crew that I work with that they must do nothing but termite infestation or something. It's like they're set up for that, because they have like great prices on scenarios just like this. Like their prices for other stuff is pretty bad, but great for this. I'm going to call him and see what he thinks about that. All right. And then I bring in a new contractor. That like opens up the door for me, because it'd be like reasonable if I had a crew that specifically did that thing and they were really good priced. How could you say anything different about it? All right. That's how I deal with that. Now, scam number 3, except for I do want to reemphasize this point, guys, that these scams, all right, again, fun to talk about, usually not malicious. Now, the criminal stuff we talked about earlier, that is pretty malicious, and they are trying to screw you. But most scams come from people are just trying to figure things out. It's a tough business for them. And, sometimes they really don't think things through. Like the fear tax, for instance, is not a one-way street. It's not because they know they got you over a barrel and they're going to take advantage of you. a lot of times they're scared about it. They're like, oh gosh, I don't know what, I guess I'm going to have to do all this work. I mean, what if I mess it up? What if there's more? The fear tax, once again, goes both ways. And just think about that when you're listening to the rest of these, because you do need to protect yourself from them. But it's not the popular narrative that all contractors are jerks and trying to screw you over. In fact, some of the best friends that I have are the people that I work with, the contractors that I work with. And there's a lot of intrinsic value there. There's a lot of, feels real good that there's these small family businesses that we as real estate investors are able to help grow their business. So think about that. And that is what you're looking for. But sometimes these scams do happen accidentally. Now, scam number 3 is the black hole. All right, this one's pretty simple. And this one happens all the friggin' time. Hire a contractor and they're doing work, and all of a sudden it's really hard to get a hold of them. And, they haven't ghosted you completely, because that's a lot easier to take care of than just move on. The black hole is kind of like they're barely holding on. They're not there. They don't have anybody on the job site. It's been like a week, and then they give you just enough. They come there for like a day, and then you're like, okay, I guess he's going to be all right. But then it happens again. And then just right when you're about to fire them, they come back for another day. And that's the black hole. And it's terrible. It's very frustrating, and it costs a lot of time and a lot of brain space. And so how do you deal with a situation like that? It's an ultimatum. That's the way to deal with it, is that, hey, it's not my job. You're a 1099 subcontractor. You're not an employee. I can't tell you where to be every day, but this is getting kind of ridiculous. It's been a couple weeks since you guys have been on site. And so this is what I have to do for my own business, is I need to get somebody else in here because I'm bleeding money right now. All right. But I had the initial deal with you, so I want to give you the opportunity. But I need you by next Friday. So give them plenty of time, whatever the task that you're about to give them, to have the floors done. All right. The floors done 1 week for floors. It's Friday right now. So 1 week for the floors. Next Friday, if I come to that job site and you don't have it done, I'm going to have to cut you loose. We'll settle up, no problem. But, with the money, I'm not going to screw you out of the money for the work that you've already done, but I need to get somebody else in here if it's not done by next Friday. Now, this is important because usually when you're in this situation, you're pissed and you're like, oh, I just want to, that guy. Leave it at the door, take some deep breaths, give a reasonable timeline, even more than reasonable, and make sure they know exactly what's going to happen. Don't be soft here. Don't be fragile. Make sure that you tell them exactly what's going to happen, point blank. I'm going to give you by Friday, guys. That's more time than you need, Mr. Contractor, but I'm going to give you some extra time because I know you're probably dealing with a lot right now. You probably have other job sites going on, and I understand that. I'm trying to be respectful here because I value our relationship. But if you're not done by next Friday, I'm kicking you off the job. All right. We will settle up on the money, but I just want to make sure Friday morning, I'm coming here. Not done. You fired. Okay. Don't be soft about this, guys. You got to be direct, but fair. All right. Contractor scam number 4, the hostage. This one is really crappy. I just realized that I am only going to tell you guys 4 today, and I think I said 5. My bad. The hostage. This one is pretty bad. It gets a lot of people, and this is like kind of a advanced variation of the loss leader, but it happens with the licensed tradesman. So it could be a general contractor. Of course, if you watch my stuff, you know that we don't hire general contractors. We act as our own general contractor, hiring all the subcontractors. Okay, but the licensed guys like mechanical, electrical, plumbing, mechanical meaning HVAC, they have to pull a permit. Once they pull a permit, it's kind of hard to get them off the permit. Like you have to go through, depending on what municipality you're in, you have to go through a whole process where you get the city to kick them off the permit for your property. And it's usually more hassle than it's worth doing. And so you kind of, once you hire these guys, they're on it unless you want to go through some frustration. And let me give you an example. Electrician gets hired to do some rewiring of your house, but you go and get a bid by 3 different contractors. 2 contractors come in at like $13,000, $14,000. And then this other guy comes in at $8,000. And you're like, You freak, man. How do you get it done so cheap? Well, those other guys don't know what the hell they're talking about. And you don't got to do you're not going to need to do a panel. You don't need to do a meter. You don't need to rewire that stuff. It's going to be just fine. But it's not. All right. Which, by the way, like, I never want to do more than I need to do. But there are some scenarios where you actually do have to do those things, or you're not going to meet code, and the inspector is not going to let you get by with it. And so whether this guy was nefarious and he knew and he was getting you in the corner, or maybe he was just dumb. But anyway, he goes in there and he does $8,000 worth of work, calls in the inspector, and the inspector says, hey, you're going to have to rewire this. You're going to have to do the panel. You're going to have to do the meter. I don't know what that guy was thinking. And anyway, so then that guy comes back and he's like, oh, well, the inspector said we have to do all this, right? I'm held hostage now. Inspector said we have to do all this. And, it's probably going to cost about $8,000 for me to do all that work. All right. Now, 8 and 8, that equals $16,000 total. If I would have just hired the guy that knew what he was talking about for 13 or 14 at the beginning, I wouldn't be in this scenario. That's how the hostage works, because once he's gotten you in that position, you're kind of in it. He did the wrong work and he's got to do this extra work now. It doesn't matter if you call those other guys, you're still spending $8,000 for that work. So how do you prevent this? Well, guys, here's the unfortunate truth about it. A lot of people, out-of-state investors especially, leadership is presence. You have to have presence there. That's why I only buy properties that are in my backyard. All right, that's one thing. The other thing is you just have to gain knowledge. Guys, if you don't have it, you are a sitting duck for whether they're malicious or not, for getting taken advantage of, for being the prey, the victim. You got to gain the knowledge. And you got to use the knowledge. You have to actually take action, because knowledge times experience equals skills. You got to gain those skills. Those skills are the true wealth. Once you have those stacked up for yourself, you won't be able to stop making money. And that's why I made this channel. I talk a lot about the things that you need to learn to be better equipped to go out there and be successful as a house flipper and a real estate investor. So I hope you check out this video right here. And guys, thanks for hanging out.